It was 30 seconds while we prepare our next interesting presentation, given by our friend Mohsen Kaboli, who is postdoctoral associate research, works in the Technical University in Munich, and he's going to present us the sense of touch in robotics. Mohsen? You ready? Let's hear it from you guys.
Thank you so much, but first I would like to thank the organizing team. They had a very good job and they are doing a very good job. I think maybe... Today I would like to talk about the sense of touch in robotics. Actually the topic I'm going to talk today maybe is a little bit different. So far you heard. Since a few years ago we were trying to realize how human can learn about the objects, environment, through different sensory modalities. We built up a baby robot when I was at University of Tokyo. This is our 9-month-old baby robot. This robot can hear and can see the object and tries to learn like a human. Means as a human, we are learning from our childhood. We are generating some random movement. For example, this robot is trying to grasp this object, and then tries, for example, to go to the object and reach the object here. But if you see one sensory modality here is missing, which is a sense of touch. It means the robot is not able to sense the environment at the moment. The robot doesn't know now this is its own feet or is a floor, or for example is the body of the guy who's grasping the object, the robot or not, right? So the idea was to make this robot to sense touch. The second thing is, for example, we had also some industrial robot in our lab. It's not easy to move the robot. It's very hard, right? It's not easy. So the idea was how we can make this robot, the hard robot, touchable, and to touch it and to easy, for example, move the arm of the robot. Or, for example, when we are talking about the grasping an object, if there is no sense of touch, you can see what happens to the object here. So, sense of touch in human plays very important role. In 1 centimeter, we have 200 tactile receptors. We can feel the pressures, vibration, and the temperature. When we are going to get the information about the objects, we need to interact with the objects. We need to, for example, slide our fingers on the object in order to realize the textural properties, or press it to know what's the stiffness of the object is. And there are some information we cannot get it from the vision. If you want to see how the texture is, you are trying just to feel. You are trying to slide your finger, your hand. We try to build up some electronic scheme for the robot. This is the robotic hand, which is very close to the humanoid. The human hands. The other one is a grippers, and this is a humanoid robot. Then we made them to feel touch. What does it mean? It means they are able to measure the normal force, shear force means the vibration, temperature, and also the proximity. So what does proximity means? We call it like a pre-touch. Consider, maybe you don't have here, but I have a very arm, then you can even feel it without having contact object here. So we covered our robotic arms, and even you can see the arms can easily move, Even if you take a feather, we can move the robot. We can take the robot hands, we can learn how to write, how to, for example, execute some tasks. Another application can be, which today I was talking with the BMW, we want to make a touchable car. Touched You will touch your car and put it in a parking place, right? Easily. Or you will have a touchable object in the inside. It means if you want to interact with the objects, just touch it. Then you can move the object inside of the autonomous car, which will be kind of a future project. When we are talking about AI, for me, maybe it's a little bit different. For me, AI or cognitive system should have at least 4 parts. Means the perception part, because we are perceiving the information via our vision, auditory, touch, and then we are interacting with the environment and object. Because if we want to, for example, feel something, we are interacting. If it's a little bit, for example, smooth, we try to again adjust our interaction, means we press more our hand, right? When we are interacting with the object, we learn about the object's environment. And then we do kind of planning and reasoning. And this is a loop. We cannot say we are just learning, we are using machine learning. This is, for me, is not correct. Because we have to have this loop, which we call it perception, interaction, and learning and planning and reasoning. Actually, today I would like to talk about how the robot can recognize the objects based on touch without having a vision. There are 2 physical properties I want to talk how our robot can recognize, means the textual properties, which we cannot recognize it with the features. And the other one is the center of mass of the object. Because this is very important when we are manipulating the object or the robot want to grasp an object. Then later on, I'm talking about the tactile-based learning, which they are kind of new. I want to say that we are not using machine learning here. We are developing the machine learning techniques in the lab. So I will show you, for example, how the robot learns via the sense of touch about the environment and the physical properties. And then I will talk about the tactile transfer learning, which is a modern machine learning, which the robot will learn about the objects or classification only with 1 sample, not thousands of the samples, while using the prior knowledge. And later on, I will show some video related to the manipulation, object manipulation. And at the end, Pablo, here my colleague, will give you some interesting presentation and information about the body perception. Here, when the robotic hand or the robotic arm, fingers, with the sense of touch slides, it generates kind of vibration because it's a raw signal for us. So what we are doing, actually here, we generate or we design the new feature extraction techniques, which we call it like activity, mobility, complexity, and linear and nonlinear correlation between the signals. And we use these features, which is a kind of abstract information. I'm not going into detail, but if you are interested, just go to the journals we have here with the publication. And the robotic hand, for example, here, which we have with the shadow hand, can recognize the objects just by feeling, by touching the objects here. For example, can recognize, regardless of the shape of the object here, can recognize what are the textural properties of the object here. Or even as a human, we are not just touching with the hand, we can grasp the large objects with the whole body. What is the difficulty here? We have 2 cameras, right? Let's say 2 eyes. But we have 5 million tactile sensors. When it comes to the signal processing, and machine learning is much more difficult, When we, for example, we had a talk about the deep learning, doesn't work here because we have so many data. So we were trying to come with a new machine learning method, signal processing method, and some techniques. For example, we call it here tactile attention. Means, for example, you have now 5 million tactile sensors, you're not using all of them, right? You just put your hand here, just this part will be active, and the rest will be kind of, let's say, sleeping. So, the second, for example, the textual properties is the center of mass. These 3 objects are similar, right? Same textures, dimension, let's say even the color. But the center of mass, if you see the red, we change the center of mass of the object. means they have different center. And how the robot can realize it, because it's very important, we are using the sense of touch. We have grippers here, and the robot autonomously goes to the object and tries to lift the object, and the object slides within the robotic finger, and the robot realizes, because we have, technically we have two types of sleep, means linear or rotational sleep, and the robot realizes where to go next time if you want to grasp the object here. Okay, now let's go to the, I'm not going into detail because it's too much stuff, I'm trying just to show what we are doing in Ainring. The other one is the exploration. Suppose here is dark. If you want to find the object, what are you doing? You are just touching, right? In order to find. But you are not touching like continuously. You are, as a human, we are touching with a strategy, If, for example, I'm touching here, if I cannot get any objects, then I found something. They try to explore around the objects. Means we are trying to reduce the uncertainty, about the objects while we are exploring. Here, for example, consider we have such a robot and that there is no vision, and we have this sense of touch, and the robot wants to find out how many autonomously, without human involved, to find out how many objects are, where are the objects are, and how is the shape of the objects, using this proximity sensor here. So here you will see, for example, the robot moves. Even if it's dark, it still works because it doesn't have any problem with the light, because vision will fail usually, right? And if you see there, the robot moves not in a greedy way, tries itself, by itself to find out where the objects are, where the informations are. In other words, the robot tries to find out where is the next position to move. It decides by itself in order to reconstruct the workspace, which will be at the end something like that. Means the robot will realize where are the objects are and will guess about the kind of the shape of the object by itself. Or even, for example, consider here, we have some object here and the robot want to touch. What does it mean? The robot is like touching without any, as I said, there is no vision, and tries to collect some tactile point clouds, and just touching the object. But again, strategically means if they realize, oh, there is one object here, tries to explore the environment which the probability to find the object is higher here. Then the robot will like clusters the tactile point cloud, then realize where are the objects are, or how many objects are in the. This is at the moment here I'm showing the industrial grippers, but actually we have like a human hand. And when the robot is moving, it tries to find out where the objects are, is collecting over there some point clouds from different direction here. And if you want to little bit know how is the algorithm, actually this is something like that, which we develop Gaussian-based kind of the framework in order to let the robot to be able to autonomously reconstruct the workspace. And how the robot learns about the objects, means the physical properties of the objects. Means the physical properties, as I said, for example, the stiffness of the object, the robot has to press the objects and then has to slide to know the textural properties and then the lifting. But when we come to the learning part, or let's say classification, in a traditional learning algorithms, we are collecting uniformly data from the objects. For example, let's say we say 100 from this, 100, 100, and 100, right? But if you touch this object, and if you realize they have different textual property, why you want to collect more samples? There is no reason. But if for example, but if two objects, they will be similar, they have similar textual properties, then the robot has to collect more in order to discriminate the objects with higher accuracy. So we made the robot in order to enable the robot in order to collect the data by itself. The robot decides how many samples the needs in order to, for example, discriminate this object from each other. So what does it mean? It means, for example, you have several objects in your workspace, and later on you want to ask the robot, for example, give me the bottle, right? First, the robot will learn about these objects via different properties, means pressing, sliding, and lifting, then knows what are the objects are, and later on when you ask, the robot takes the object and will give it to you. And even, for example, the orientation and rotation, position of object can be different here. Here is a kind of a learning process, means the robot learns here, and then tries to find out how similar are these robots, or the objects are, or the objects are possible, for example, to discriminate them together. Or, for example, if the objects if the objects has similar textural properties and it's difficult, for example, to recognize objects from the textures, tries to find out how is their stiffness, because the objects can have different properties, or can even share some properties here. This is a scenario, for example, now I want to ask my robot, okay, the robot learned about some objects here. Means these objects, the robot knows what are these objects. Then I put these two objects in the workspace, and the robot doesn't have any idea what are these. And I'm asking my robot, oh, look, I want to have this one. This is my target object. And try to find out this object as fast as possible. And then here, I give kind of a probability, means the robot has to be sure. If, for example, the robot want to give this object to me, should be at least 90% sure if this is an object. Maybe the robot, for example, here, knows this is not the target object, this is my target object. This is a target object, means 100%. This is not target, and this is a target object is 0 here. Then goes to the target object, the probability to find it at the moment is like 50%, but I'll ask the robot to be sure this is the object I want to have it. Then again, another action, then here the robot will realize, okay, yeah, this is a target object which wanna give it to me. I'm going to talk about the next part. This is an interesting part, which is tactile transfer learning, and we are leading these topics at the moment in robotics and AI. The idea is here. For example, if the robot, let's say this is the simple classification, and we have a prior objects here. What does it mean? It means the robot, with enough number of samples, could recognize or classify these objects from each other, right? From the textural properties. Now we want to make our robot to be able to reuse the past or prior knowledge when it goes to recognize the new objects with only one sample. For example, when the robot is touching this one, can see, for example, can recognize or can remember, oh, look, before I was touching similar, means not rough, let's say, for example, here, consider this one. For example, can realize, okay, this is similar to, let's say, the first or second, the objects here, And then based on 1-2 samples plus prior knowledge, tries to adapt the learning part. You know what do I mean? Means, as a human, let's say, for example, if you know, it takes you to play like a violin 6 months, right? And then you know also how to drive car. So these 2 skills, as we learn it, right? So the next time you want to play guitar, it will be faster because we have a prior knowledge. The other thing is, as a human, we are not using the negative knowledge. The negative knowledge for us will be the skill of driving car. Means when we are transferring the experience or knowledge, we have to know from where to transfer, how to transfer, how much to transfer, and how to stop irrelevant information or knowledge here. The other example is, for example, here, the robot was exploring, but tries to transfer the past experience with the textural properties, stiffness, and also the thermal conductivity of the objects when goes, for example, to recognize these objects. For example, here, if you see, we have, let's say, such a paper here. When touch the hand on the paper, realize, okay, this can be a paper. Again, when it goes here, can recognize with one touch, this might be something similar, for example, to the objects in the right side. This is some result we have. You will see, for example, in order just to show you, look here, for example, with only one sample, we got more than 70% recognition accuracy. But with, for example, the normal machine learning algorithm, we got just like a 50 or 60. And if you have more prior knowledge, definitely we can get higher and higher accuracy because the robot has more possibility to select some information. So let's back to the grasping part. If you remember, and I said when we don't have a sense of touch, the robot can easily smash the objects. So even if the robot is able to grasp the objects here with a minimum grasping force, but still the objects slides within the robot because there is no slip detection or grip force control here. So what we did here, we came with some idea, and also we developed some like a slip detection and grip force method, and then the robot, this is, I can tell you, this is the most difficult task in robotics, because this is a fragile object, you know, it's not hard, and the robot has to compensate to grasp the object without losing the object and without smashing the object. When you are increasing the weight of the objects, you know, the robot has to estimate continuously the weight and to keep the objects in the hand. This is another difficult task for the robot because this is the central mass is very dynamic. You know, when you are drinking the water, you know, the central mass of the object is changing. So the robot should be able to compensate and to grasp the object safely without losing and without smashing. Just maybe one interesting example here. But when the object is very heavy, and also is a fragile and deformable, robot cannot grasp it, because even human, right? Because either the robot has to leave the object or to smash the object. Then we came with a human-like, you know, it tries to grasp it, but it's difficult. Then is a human-like approach. We are trying to change the central mass. Means the robot is trying to change the central mass in order to grasp the object here. So back to our baby robot, what we did. This one, if you remember, then this one was baby robot, we made skin, and if you see here with our skin, I think this is not, it's blurry, but you can see here. If it's like human, if you're touching, you know, here, you can feel it, you can see something is moving on the, I mean, if you look at that, on the body, you know, or even if you put something, you know, you can recognize the shape. We don't need vision even to do the shape recognition. If you put something on the body, or if something is moving, then you can realize it. This is the sensor we put it, and this one was our baby robot. Then with 4,000 tactile sensor. This has a very ugly face because we are not allowed to make it like a human because of the uncanny valley. Because uncanny valley means if it's very similar to the human, it's very scary, and people, they don't like it, right? So we are not allowed to do that one. And at the moment, for example, the robot, when it's lying, can recognize by the whole body what are these textures, can recognize these textures, and the sense of touch can help them even to roll easily. So what at the moment I'm doing with another guy, I mean the Professor Somia, we are developing the new scheme. We are going to make your hand, your scheme, to be your mobile phone and display in the future. You can see that. We are going to print the skin on the body of the human. We are going to have, I don't have noise here.
Skin sensor utilizing nano-mesh electrode is ultra-thin, lightweight, stretchable, and breathable. It is capable of monitoring health conditions simply by pasting it onto the skin. New sensor can be worn on the skin continuously for a week without causing any inflammatory issues. Our skin display is a 24 by 16 array of micro LEDs the acquired biometric data can be transferred to a medical cloud. And your home doctor can monitor your health conditions while you stay at home. In the future, we envision human-friendly skin electronics that will lead to improving the quality of human life.
The current project, we are going to use this type of a scheme. We are going to, at the moment, to make a prosthetic hand, right? And the prosthetic hand, we sensorize it, and then we are going to print the electronics or the sensor on the body. You know, we are not wiring, you know, here. But there is a problem here. The problem is, even if you have a prosthetic hand, how do we know this is the part of our body or not, right? Because the body perception comes from the touch. This is my hand, this is your hand. Now Pablo is going to know how we are going to solve this problem.
Well, thank you for the question. This is for me. After I didn't see the video of Sumaya, so maybe I have to go out after this amazing video. So I will just ask you to just forget about the consumer. This is just for fun a little bit. Maybe in the future it will be something. But I want you to point out something that we never realize, that is our body. So he has to talk about the sense of touch, but then how do you use the sense of touch to know where your body is? Actually, if imagine that I have a Google detector of my hand and I just do this, I would say, oh, where is my hand so far? No? Okay? But I know all the time where is my hand, okay? How we know that? How I know that when I push my hand in front of me, it will appear? All these predictors are really interesting for robotics and also for the human. And the most interesting thing here, to start, is that actually we start learning when we are in the uterus, okay? So imagine that you are in the belly and you start moving and then you start learning, and it's a continuous process. And I will show a video from the Kuniosis lab that I like it so much. That is, they actually built a model of a baby, okay, in the uterus, and then the baby start to move, and they model all the muscles and everything, and they connect it to the brain to see how these connections, how this touch actually build the somatosensory part of the brain. You have to understand that it's a liquid that is dense, and whenever you move, you have some kind of sense, okay? And in the end, you build up, you know that there is a specific part of the brain that actually maps your touch, okay? And this will be one of the core important things for where's your body. Great. So then we have two questions. The colors are not really good. Well, anyway. Is this my body? How we know that this is our body? How the robots know that this is our body? Well, actually, in robotics is easy because we model everything. We do in the CAD model, and then we know where is everything. But what happens if we have any error? Or if we want to solve robotics, okay? So the first thing is how I recognize my body, okay? And the second question that is important for us is how I know this is my body and how I know that the person that is approaching me is another body. Maybe for you it's like, wow, this is easy. Okay, this is not that easy, right? But the cool thing of this is that we can actually learn it as a human, okay? We are a little bit far from there, but we are going in that direction. And we actually use two interesting concepts that we brought from psychology, that is body ownership. The first one is how you know that your body belongs to you, okay? And we have another one that is agency, and this is super important for robotics. So it's that you're aware that you did something, that you can predict what you are going to do, okay? So if I move something here, I know that I did it. How we can do that? And this is something that is super crazy. That is only by merging the information that comes from the sensors, okay? Good. So not only we learned in the belly when we are babies, but also we learn in whole life. And there is something super interesting here, that we have an online adaptation. We are all the time adapting our model of the body. Where we touch, if I touch here, I know that I'm here, okay? And how we know this? Maybe I'm passing the time? No. We know this because of something called body illusions. Have you ever heard about the rubber hand illusions? Any of here? You know what it is? Nobody? Then good, perfect. So in this video you will see
let's say what's left arm of the and placing in front of the eyes of the subject and the cluster of the rubber. And then an experimental stroke, let's say the index finger of my left hand, and at the same time the left index finger of the rubber hand. And if he does this synchronously for a minute, up to 2 minutes, certain subjects, 2/3 of all subjects, will start experiencing this hand for some moments as if it were belonging to their body.
okay, this means that we can actually make you think that your body is different. Okay? What is happening here? How that can be so easy? It's 1 minute touching and then your body is in a different place. And actually, if you ask the participant to actually touch his hand, they will point to their rubber hand. So there is a shift, there is a drift on your body model. Okay? So in such a case, we think this is good or bad. But this would be really cool for robots, no? That you can change your body depending on your signals. No? And we say, okay, let's try to replicate it in the robot. So I said to one of my students, okay, you have to replicate this. I said, okay. After some weeks, we start to collecting data. This is TUM, this is the robot TUM that you saw before, and that we have in the lab. And we started collecting data. The robot learns its own model of the body on the tactile part, okay? Using supervised learning. And then afterwards, we built a model that is this one, that will not get in details, but is related to variational values, okay? But the idea more or less is that you have some sensorial input, and then you have some model, and then you have to predict, and then you minimize the free energy. Okay, anyway, so then we put to work this thing, and you will see it's a super short, but here in the top, if it starts, yes, this is what the star is what the robot thinks that the body is, but then it will start to switch and to drift according to what is sensing in the other side, okay? Actually, I have here a snapshot. That actually what is happening here is there's an error on the visual tactile information, okay? And then this means that there is a drift on the model of the hand. Actually, only is the drift of the end effector, but also is the drift of the whole arm, all right? And I just wanted to put this, I think I'm good with time, to say one thing that is important in all these kind of artificial intelligence and machine learning, that sometimes in artificial intelligence we forget about the action. I was asking actually, I will finish in 30 seconds. So, and this is important for me. This is Antonio Damasio, this is one of the neurologists most important in the world, okay? And this is what we are trying to put. That is, there is not just a thing that's as a disembodied robot, okay? We need to use the sensors and the actuators inside the machine learning algorithms, or if not, never we will arrive to real intelligence. That's our thought, and the people that work in robotics, we have really clear this thing, and sometimes people from AI, they forget about it. And with this, I want just to thank also Mohsen and the organizers. If you have any question, thank you very much.
So, any question?
When you say ask the robot to find out, what do you define as object? What are the features that the robot should be searching for?
When we are talking about the object, when it comes, for example, to the, as I said, the robot will learn about the objects via their physical properties, right? Then when this is an object for us, is a bottle of water, right? Then if you touch it, you know the textures, you know how does it look like, you know the center of mass, you know, and then when the robot goes to this object, just for example touch the objects, realize the textures, right? If you have these two, let's say these two objects, the robot, let's say here, touch the object and realize this is a control, remote control, then take it and give it to you, right? But for example, for the autonomous agent, we are not just using let's say physical properties. We are also taking care of color of the objects or other properties of the object, right? Means we are combining or fusing let's say textual information as well as vision. So the robot will realize or learns about the environment, object via their sensory input. We call it perception. And then goes to the objects and executes an action. An action can be grasping and decision making and brings the object to you, which we call it human-robot collaboration or human-robot interaction. But when it comes to, because the problem was with the robot, you know, like if you remember a year ago, one person was killed in Fauve, you know, by the robotic arm. But what we are doing, we are going to do now, we are going to make the robot safe. When you are going close to the robot, when there is a sense of touch, and the robot generates the safe trajectory in order to avoid colliding with a human. Means safe human-robot collaboration or interaction. Any other question? Yes?
Proximity sensor, how far is it?
Sorry?
Your proximity sensor, how far?
This proximity sensor is like 20 centimeters at the moment. You know, but we are not making the proximity sensor, we are using the proximity sensor. It depends, the technology depends on the company. But at the moment, there are some partners, they are working on a flexible proximity sensor, means even we can bend it, you know, and then if you see the video I showed, for example, with the skin and display, actually we have now one which is covered with the proximity sensor, you know, then we put it in the body of the robot. And there is a project which will be around 2021, which the human and the humanoid and the human will do dancing together without colliding, using the proximity sensor. Any other question? Yes?
Just what kind of use case do we have in mind now that kind of technology of sensing would be applied in use cases?
For the user, for the application, at the moment we are, because we are receiving the budget from the like a DFG or EU, right? So actually we are making this stuff, but we are not the owner. You know, we don't have a company, you know, because we are doing just research and we are coming with the idea. But actually, like the university, let's say here, or for example, the funding agency is the owner of the products, you know. And I think even in Germany it's a little bit difficult because there's a lot of bureaucracy in order, for example, to come with a kind of a startup or, you know, to put it in the market. Especially when it comes to the tactile sensor, when it, I mean, especially for the robot, when it comes to the safety, you know. Because if you want to put it, for example, to call this robot is safe, the robot has to pass many tests, you know, in order to be called as a safe robot.
Let me say something just for case users. Imagine that you want to put in an industry a robot without sense of touch or a robot with a sense of touch. Which one you would prefer so far? Something that feels you whenever you are approaching or not? I would go for touch sensing, no? We put more sensing, better. So there is thousands of use case applications with the sense of touch. But,
the last thing I want to say that because people, I mean, they are familiar with the robot. You know, when it comes to the control of the robot, this robot which we had, it is we call it position control, and it's not a torque control. Because if you want to put like some sensors, like a torque force sensor, it is very expensive. For example, the robot like a KUKA, it costs like 100,000 euro, right? But with the sense of touch, we are going to even replicate or to estimate the torque force, you know, using the sense of touch, and to make the robot even much more cheaper. We are getting the advantage of the skin, we call it artificial skin or robotic skin.
Just one last question. I was just thinking about the autonomous vehicles, the problems they face. I think the point with security is quite interesting. How do you test security?
This is at the beginning. We just started the project. I told you, I don't know if I was allowed to say with BMW, but I cannot give you more information because it's a kind of a confidential project. But anyway, there will be like a project soon. The first prototype will come, and then at least, for example, maybe we are not talking about the safety at the moment. We are trying to make the inside of the car touchable car, to interactive car. And then the second idea of the project which we are working means how to navigate the car with a touch. You can touch the robot, and then put it in a parking. There is no safety at the moment here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mohsen.
Guys, we would like to thank all the sponsors and participants and the speakers for attending MI Summit, the one and only free event in Munich regarding artificial intelligence. It will become even bigger for the next years because we believe that the science should be hip and free. Yeah!